We're going to start today's session with a conversation with Justin Wexler, general partner at WndrCo. Justin and I connected recently on LinkedIn, actually, because Justin had reached out to Bharat Gadam, who's a 1Mby1M premium member, in the context of one of his companies that is in the same space as Data Poem, Bharat's company. And then I invited him to come here so we can understand what he's up to and exchange notes and so on and so forth. So, Justin, welcome. Okay.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you having me on.
So let's start with a bit of introduction of your background as well as some background of your fund.
Yes, of course. So my background, grew up in Florida, right out of college, joined a fund called Technology Crossover Ventures, TCV. Was pretty much the first time they hired someone straight out of school. So very unique experience for me as an analyst. I was in the New York office, though TCV is based in Palo Alto. A big focus of mine was looking for great bootstrapped startups. And so that's when I first came across your work, right when I was beginning my career, and really enjoyed reading some of the posts that you've put out. So yeah, I'm very appreciative to now be on this event. And so 2 years into TCV, I got connected to Jeffrey Katzenberg, who had just sold DreamWorks to Comcast and was looking to build a new firm that eventually would become WndrCo. And it was amazing to be part of that initial team that kind of came together. So not just Jeffrey, but two really amazing guys from Dropbox, Sujay Joswa, who led the finance business section, and Chen-Li Wang, who led a lot of the product section of Dropbox. They got connected to Jeffrey, and then I first got to meet Chen-Li, and then more broadly the rest of the team. So that was in early 2017. So now we're approaching 2026. So it's been nearly a decade with Sujay and Jeffrey and Chen-Li, and then our other partners, Anthony and Jeff. And it's been pretty incredible. So we've done a bunch of really amazing investments and deals, worked with some awesome founders, entrepreneurs. As a firm, we will do Series A, Series B investments, which is where I primarily spend my time, though we also will build companies, whether that's completely from scratch, like an incubation, or we'll take an existing asset that we feel has so much more potential than perhaps the company's realized, and take a large position in the company and help try to transform it. So that's also a lot of fun to do, and we've had some great things that we're very proud of in that respect. So yeah, that's pretty much the background on myself and on WndrCo.
What sector, what specific sector thesis do you work with?
Yeah, as a firm, we look at technology. So we look at technology that affects consumers, so B2C technology, and that affects the future of work in enterprise and other organizations, so B2B type investing. Historically, we were a little bit focused on digital media when we began, though that's really not a focus for us now. I would break it up into the consumer security. That's a big theme. So consumer broadly, but security probably being the biggest part of that. And I could talk to a number of our bets there, though we have made other investments in like online marketplaces and mobile applications. And then on the B2B side, cybersecurity is a big theme within that, but other areas that affect HR, marketing, finance. We just invested in Harvey, which is AI in the legal department. So we look at a number of different lanes across a Fortune 500 organization and say, where can AI and software be most impactful, and try to make bets within each of those groups.
And when you write Series A checks, what size checks are you writing, and what do you want to see in terms of proof points in the companies that you want to invest in? So
we're really proud of our conviction to be able to help founders in a meaningful way. We really don't want to be just money. We feel like there's a lot of sources of capital in the VC ecosystem, and the founders purely looking for that. That's great, but because we are relatively small firm, we're our firm size is in the 400 to 600 million, amount per fund. We're not, multi-billion-dollar per fund. So we can be very focused on making, only a handful of investments per fund. And each of them, we want to have some level of impact beyond capital. And so that affects how we make our investments as well. We'll typically do a $10 to $20 million initial check into a company. So I'll give you some examples with Alembic. That was a $14 million initial investment. Ryder and Natomi were $15 million initial investments. Those were all investments I led for the firm. So that's typical for us, again, the $10 to $20 million range. Is a company ready for our investment? It really has a number of different factors. When I look at, I lead our enterprise AI investing. I look at, has this company proven themselves at least at a couple of Fortune 500 organizations? So in the case of Alembic, they had done that, NVIDIA being one, and they had one other as well in the Fortune 500. And then does that give us enough conviction that if we get involved, we can help them significantly grow within the enterprise? And so for that one, yeah, they were a company that, was right around the 1 million ARR mark when we invested, which for some companies that would be too early. If it's a PLG, maybe we need to see more proof points than 1 million. But for this company, they had, solid logos. We got to talk to those customers, got to hear what pain point they're solving for them. And then we had the conviction that, okay, this can solve a pain point for other Fortune 500. So, I get asked all the time by founders, hey, what's your sweet spot? It really depends. Can we get the conviction that this company can really scale with collaboration and partnership with the capabilities that we bring to the table?
And how big is the WndrCo fund?
So our funds have typically been in the $400 to $600 million range.
And do you have any geographical preference?
We've invested all over the world. We have offices in New York and in Redwood City, though two of our partners live in Los Angeles. Most of our investments are in the Bay Area or New York, but we've made investments all over the place. We have companies throughout the Midwest that we've invested in. We've made investments in Texas and other states, all across the country. We were the first investors alongside Excel and 1Password, which is based in Toronto in Canada. We're investors in Deal, which has roots in Israel. We're investors in a company called Yassir, which is in Algeria in Africa. We've actually made several major investments in Africa. Our first music-related investment, Mixcloud, is based in London. I would think we've made investments in several. I'm thinking, have we made any in Asia, perhaps out of our seed efforts? But we've made investments in several continents throughout the world.
Okay. So why don't you pick a couple of investments that you want to double-click down on and talk a bit more about how they came to you, what did they have that gave you that conviction to write the bigger checks, and what do you see in them given the current environment? How do they align with the trends and so forth?
So I'll talk again about Alembic, which is one that we're really proud to be involved with. The founder came from the CMO world. He was a CMO himself, always was pressured because he was at private equity owned companies he'd work at, pressured to prove the value of every cent that he spent on marketing. And the tools and capabilities are quite limited. Of course, with programmatic and performance marketing, advertising or digital advertising, there's some tools around LTV to CAC, and it's very easy to watch if someone clicks on an ad, where they go from there. But what about the big spend areas? What about sponsoring a sports event or tournament or a stadium or award ceremony on TV? Those are much more difficult to quantify. And this founder was determined to build a platform that can do that. It took him several years. And in fact, some of the inspiration for Alembic was around contact tracing. So taking huge unstructured data sets and watching how infection spreads and the outcome of getting sick or not sick. Well, marketing is similar. You get exposed to marketing, it spreads, and instead of getting sick or not, you buy a product or you don't. So there's some similarities in that respect and statistics took that inspiration for Alembic. And like I mentioned, they had NVIDIA as a big customer for them. They sponsor tons of events. They spend on TV, radio, social, podcasts, etc., both earned and paid. And so using the Alembic platform to see the value of all those efforts. And so how I came across Tomas and the founder and the team at Alembic, we had spent a ton of time in the CMO ecosystem. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find another firm that spends this amount of time with CMOs. Jeffrey is a brand marketer by background, and his time at Disney and DreamWorks. You think about how much marketing was spent for Shrek and Kung Fu Panda and all that, so learned a ton about marketing. And he's a storyteller. And so we spend time. We go to dinners, we go to conferences. We are there with CMOs and hearing about their challenges. And for them, AI has such a huge effect on content creation. And we made an investment there with Writer, which I led as well, for creating content. Of course, there's so much exciting innovation going on in other, like you look at Coca-Cola, they've now for the second year now have created TV spots that are all AI generated. So you think about visual AI, there's so much exciting things going on there. And so we're constantly talking to CMOs about what challenges AI can help solve. And of course, content creation is number one talked about, but at the same time, what role can AI play for attribution and understanding effectiveness and having better intelligence around, where to spend and where not to. And so we heard this pain point time and time again. In fact, Jeffrey and I, we had a breakfast with Alicia Tillman before we announced our Alembic investment. She's the CMO of Delta. And she was saying, hey, we have the Paris Olympics coming up later. This was last year. And I have no real way to prove to my CFO and my exec team the dollar impact. I can show them, generalized engagement, but I would love to have more intelligence around the value of the Paris Olympics. And so, that got us excited.
How do you do that? How do they do that? Like, these events are hard to pin down, right? For how it impacts marketing. How does that happen?
Of course. And so yeah, I'll talk about that. But to answer your prior question, when we hear this time and time again from CMOs, as we did with Alicia, as we did from, and I can name countless other CMOs talking about these pain points, that quickly gave us conviction when we met with Tomas and heard how he was doing this for NVIDIA, that this is something that we want to, make a big bet on. And we did the entire Series A ourselves. It's 14 million Series A. We did 14 million. So that was one where we were all in with the founder and wanted to help him, and support his dreams of building this into a big company. How Alembic does this is very interesting. So they spent years, actually, because COVID was like in 2020, but years taking inspiration from that and building other algorithms around taking huge data sets, tens of billions of rows, every time Delta's mentioned in relation to the Olympics, and kind of look at what baseline looks like, what baseline engagement, baseline sales look like for a brand, and then can see kind of spikes in down funnel activity that they can conclude are directly attributable to upper funnel activity. So it's kind of like a massive signal noise processor and can find the signal through all that noise. They also bring in all the data sets as well. What's that?
What is the data set? Is it social media?
And social media, but they actually have physical antennas globally for TV. So it can capture the raw TV signal. For a company like Delta or many other Fortune 100, you're waiting for your agency to report back when your brand was mentioned on TV, but they're relying on the TV networks to tell them. Sometimes that data is not perfect. So, the best source of truth is the actual raw signal. Because again, you might show up on a TV spot, but what if an announcer mentions Delta? That might not be captured in something that an agency will get to report back to a brand. So they, again, capture that raw signal every time the logo is shown, every time the word Delta is mentioned. And then they have ways to say, okay, well, Delta is a word that can mean a lot of other things, Delta and mathematics, but they can say, okay, well, it's related to airlines or it's in the right context. So they can, they can get it down to, the actual brand itself. And then same thing on radio, on podcasts, everywhere else. So they bring a lot of this data in on day one, which in and of itself is very valuable to brands. But then when you combine it with down funnel sales metrics and data that, like for Delta, a lot of the purchase is either on delta.com or it's on an OTA like Booking or Expedia, which that data can be brought into the system as well. Then you can look at top funnel and then down funnel, and then you can start making conclusions around causality.
Very interesting. Now, you said you have a big interest in cybersecurity, and you have a lot of Series A as well as some earlier stage investments in cybersecurity. What is your cybersecurity thesis?
Yeah, so as a firm, I mentioned our main funds, which will look to do Series A and B investing. We'll also look to build companies. We do have a dedicated seed fund, a separate fund as well, that will meet with very early stage companies that might not even have any revenue. It might just be an idea, or it could be a typical seed type round. We've made a handful of cybersecurity investments there. We've also made security investments out of our main efforts and fund as well. So it's multifold. I would say the threats facing consumers online are only exponentially increasing. Our largest investment in the category is in Aura, A-U-R-A, which is in the identity theft protection space. This company is a combination of several assets plus a bunch of amazing new innovation over the years. But it started with us seeing a public company that called Intersections that had a product called Identity Guard, which we thought was a really strong product for protecting consumers against identity theft. But felt like in its current structure as a public company and the way that the company was managed for just profitability first and foremost, didn't allow them to innovate to the extent needed to stay on top of emerging digital threats. So part of our thesis on taking that asset private and basically using it as a foundation for what Aura is now was to really focus on staying top of the line when it comes to helping consumers protect themselves against credit card theft, online user passwords and their accounts. You think about how much
It's a B2C company?
It's a B2C company, but has increasingly gone, just like 1Password has, B2B as well. So 1Password also started as a B2C company, helping consumers with password management. Both companies have gone largely to B2B. In fact, if not already, I think it's inevitable that each of them will be vast majority B2B. I don't want to speak about the tipping point, but a huge percentage of both companies are now B2B. For Aura, it's offered as a employee benefit. So at many Fortune 500s now, when you do your open enrollment for your health benefits, your dental benefits, Calm and Headspace both have done amazing job turning themselves from a pure consumer product to something that your employer will offer you for mental health. But you'll also, at many companies, be offered Aura for yourself and your family to protect yourself, because many times employees will use their own devices, or sometimes they'll use the same passwords for their consumer life as they do in their professional life. And so there's a strong incentive for employers to have something like Aura offered to their employees. And so we made a number of investments in cybersecurity, but this is the one that we've been most involved with in building this company along the way.
Okay, and talk to me a little bit about the seed fund that So our program obviously is incubation, acceleration. So we do a lot of very early stage companies. We are completely stage agnostic, even though accelerators these days want more validated companies. We are open to working with pre-idea, pre-revenue, pre-product market fit, pre-repeatability, all of that. So it would be interesting to hear a bit about your thesis when it comes to seed investing.
So we can work with early stage founders in really two ways. One, we can help incubate a company. We love to do that. We've done a number of times when a founder is like, look, I have a big idea, but I don't want to go at it completely alone. I'd love to partner and collaborate very closely with you all, the 6 partners and broader WndrCo team. And that way we're kind of creating companies together. And have Jeffrey Katzenberg as a co-founder of yours, and Sujay and Chen Li and myself and Jeff and Anthony is really exciting for some founders. and feel like that might give them the best chance of success. The other way that we can partner with early stage founders is through our seed funds. We'll typically write $500 to $1.5 million checks. We'll never lead those, but we'll participate in rounds. So if a founder is going at it and raising a seed round, they have a lead and they're looking for maybe a second or third largest check in that round, we could be a very good fit for that. We do those, one, because we get excited by the founders and we think it could be a great return for us. But we also do it because we hope to be along the founder journey. And if they raise a Series A down the road, our main funds could be a really good partner for them to lead the rounds. And we've done that a few times as well. So that's why we do the seed efforts.
And Justin, how are you and your firm parsing what's happening in AI? How do you think about AI?
So there's so much going on broadly. I think we have a few areas where we're well suited to do some exceptional stuff. I think of course having Jeffrey as our partner, he was there in the transformation from hand-drawn animation to CGI, which was a massive shift in how creativity manifests. And you think about bringing Pixar into Disney, and Shrek was one of the most successful CGI films, and paved the way for that to be the more prominent way that animated films go into theaters. We hardly see hand-drawn. And so this shift now from CGI to generative AI, now you had to have a real steady hand to draw animation in the past. CGI allowed you to type and, a different set of skills. But now with generative AI, you don't even need to, be a digital artist to the same extent. You can just have really great ideas and just prompt the model, and you can have amazing outputs. And so, Jeffrey, seeing that transformation up close gives us, I think, a real advantage when it comes to the AI startups today that are building models and building platforms for the creator community. And so, we spend a lot of time with founders building in that world. In parallel, I think the transformation in enterprise is pretty incredible as well. You talk about an investment that I'm on the board of called Natomi that Jeffrey and I worked very closely with. They are AI for customer experience and customer support. So powering the two largest airlines in the United States. They are the main AI for both of them. And then other customers as well, like DraftKings, NBA, Paramount as well. So working with some of the largest Fortune 500 brands, and how AI affects customer experience. Jeffrey, he's had his career in thinking through how to provide the very best experience for customers. So, AI can play a huge role in that. I think we have, because of that background, a real understanding of how AI can help both employees and customers. Again, Jeffrey had to keep artists very happy to do their best work at Disney and DreamWorks. And so we think about, AI's role in helping, make the lives of employees better as well. But then, more than just looking at the past, I think over the last 5 years, he and I in our broader partnership have spent so much time with CTOs and CIOs on the tech side, as well as CMOs, CHROs, chief legal officers we're spending time with, that when we meet with founders that can meet the needs of these execs, then we get very excited quickly. So we like to position ourselves as truly partners to C-suite execs across enterprise. And regardless of if we've made an investment or not, we want to help them solve their challenges. And sometimes that means recommending solutions that we've not invested in, but nonetheless build our credibility and trust with executives in the Fortune 500.
So, given the time, I want to ask one last question, which is about, have you made investments in the creator economy using AI? Because this is a very interesting field. What you just talked about, the progression of where animated filmmaking is going. Filmmaking in general is going in that direction because you can do so much with generative AI and so forth. So tell us more about what you're seeing. Tell us more about what you've invested in. That the creator economy, AI and the creator economy, is a very interesting field.
We've made several investments. Well, historically, we're investors in Figma, in Frame.io, and Webflow. which are all great, amazing products used for creativity, whether it's creating website or creating video, or in Figma, creating mobile apps or other design work. And I mean, Figma is used for so many different things. So we're really proud of our creator tool portfolio. More in the AI native kind of era, we've focused on AI that can help in business type of content. So Writer has been our biggest investment there. They help organizations like American Eagle, which is an introduction that we help make to the CMO. For product descriptions across AmericanEagle.com, they will now use the Writer platform to stay compliant, stay on brand tone, leverage the right type of brand voice that American Eagle has for written content. We're also investors in a company called Creatify that will help brands when they want to post on social media, on TikTok and Instagram and other places. At the same time, you look at like these big generative models for creating movies and creating video games and creating, music. And we've met so many amazing products like Suno, which is in the music space, or like Midjourney in video creation, or Pika, or I can name a bunch of others. Of course, we've also spent time with the Google and OpenAI teams with Sora and what they're doing. We have not made a major investment in that particular category for a number of reasons. One, we'd like to just have, one major bet per category. And we've just been so amazed by a number of different, products, both from startups and from bigger tech. Two, I think a lot is getting played out legally on the training of these platforms. And it's, to see OpenAI partner with Disney is incredible. But at the same time, as of today, Google and Disney are trying to figure out how they collaborate. And so I think there's some things to sort out right now, and we're just.
I think the legal aspect of, I think it applies less to animation. Animation is less hairy, but when it comes to actual actors and, how AI plays with their.
Yeah, 100%. And we spent a lot of time with Hollywood and both screenwriters, directors, but also the talent as well. Jeffrey, helped so many of their careers over the decades. So they come to us many times and say, hey, you all are close with AI. How's this going to affect my role? Should I be licensing my likeness if you're a Hollywood, Oscar winning or Grammy award winning, performer, or should I try to stay out of it? Every talent is trying to figure out their place in this, and it's hard. We don't have the right answers.
Generation animated AI company that the next version of Pixar should be very doable with AI.
Yes, no, we believe that, and there's like Black Forest is another company. There's many others that we've met that have that opportunity to be that, and Jeffrey will say the hundreds of millions of dollars spent on creating something like Shrek could now be done in maybe tens of millions, or maybe even less than $10 million. Could be only $2 million in a year or two, which is wild. And that is interesting because now you don't just have to be in Hollywood to create a film of Shrek caliber. You could be in the Middle East, you could be in Turkey, you could be in Brazil, you could be in Asia, and you create films of that caliber or even higher caliber. So that's exciting for the democratization of creativity.
Indeed.